House will please be in order. House will please be in order. Those persons not having privilege of the floor, please vacate the chamber. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer today by the gentleman from the 80th District, Delegate Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members and guests, please join me in bowing your heads for prayer. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to serve our wonderful citizens in the state of West Virginia. We ask that you watch over those loved ones who are home, who support us in our service to make our state an even better place to live. We ask that you grant us the wisdom and humility to govern and be just. And as we approach the Lenten season next week, I stress that you give us the humility to govern well for all those who don't have a voice for themselves. Please grant our members a safe passage home this weekend. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please remain standing as we are led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by the gentleman from the 93rd District, Delegate Hornby.
Mr. Speaker, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members and guests may be seated. Reading of the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Wednesday, February 15th, 2023.
Gentleman from the 90th, Delegate Miller.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it has been approved as being read.
Gentleman from the 90th, ask unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Introductions. Introductions. Gentleman from the 41st, Delegate Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery, we have a very special guest from my hometown of Mount Hope, West Virginia, my niece, Jenna Maynard. Would you please stand and make her feel welcome?
Gentleman from the 51st, Delegate Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have some wonderful guests from Meadow Bridge, a great part of Fayette County. And this is on behalf of myself and the Fayette County delegation. If they would stand as I read their names: Aaron Fox, Isaac Black, Kendall Wilkinson, Samara Cool. What a name, Samara Cool, that is so cool. And they are accompanied by Elizabeth Hamlin, teacher in Dravin Burkett. If the House would please make them welcome.
Gentleman from the 88th, Dr. Hillenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could direct everybody's attention to the North Gallery, would you all please welcome three people from Hampshire County that Delegate Thorne and I am so pleased to see. We don't get too many visitors from Hampshire County here. We have Stephanie Clark with the Alzheimer's Association as a walk manager, Christy Fries, an Alzheimer's caregiver and advocate, and Allison Fries, who is Miss Hampshire County Fair's outstanding team and a student at Romney Middle School. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 84th, Dr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce to you from the greatest county in West Virginia and the prettiest, some students down here today representing students in government. And from Terriata, East Preston, Nick Bennett, Bryce Brown, Nate Castile, Malachi Cupp, Braden Dillsworth, Brojan Dillsworth, Galvin Hardesty, Max Huggins, Miguel Munzi. I told her I was going to mess that name up, okay? Bryson Nice, Levi Yoder, Riley Fike, Harley Freeland, Alisa Friend, Lexa Galloway, Berlin Peterson, Grace Ringer, Claire Uphold, and Principal Justin Hoff, and Teacher Malik Gank, Parents, Kayla Huggins and Teresa Friend. And from the Aurora School, Alana Arnold, Trinity Sisler, Alisa Thomas. From South Preston, Cheyenne Boyard, Jolyn Long, Sylvia Goff, Jaden Pfeiffer, Carlton Morgan, Allison Owens, Neil Ann Pace, Haley Boyard, and Principal Jim Hawk, and teacher Nick Miller from George Street, and me representing Preston County. I want to present these great, wonderful kids to you. Give them a big hand.
Gentleman 98, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my Eastern Panhandle colleagues, pleased to welcome two representatives of home helpers in the North Gallery. If you please stand as I call your names, Lisa Fosse and Nicole Devlin. They're here as part of Alzheimer's Association Advocacy Day, so I'm sure they'll be making their rounds, and hopefully we'll have a chance to visit with them. Will the House please make them welcome?
Gentleman 30, Douglas Adkins.
Mr. Speaker, I have some kids from Lincoln County High School here today, pagers. Would you stand as I announce your name? Elizabeth Hager, Gage Searles, he must be out on the floor. We've got Heather Lacey and Abby Polly, and her mother, Carrie Polly, is also chaperoning them. Would the House give them a warm welcome?
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 32nd, Delegate Holstein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining us in the North Gallery, I have some folks here today from Boone County for Youth in Government. When I call their name, if they would please rise and the House would recognize them. We have from Madison Middle School, Carrington Dotson, Kiera Griggs, Caitlin Esbrandt, Ricky Bailey, and their teacher, Mallory Kennedy. Also from Sherman Junior High School, we have Grace Elkins, Adriana Halstead, Michaela Harless, Lily Hudson, and accompanying them is their teacher, Miss Paula Meadows and Abby Bolton. And also from Van Junior High School, we have Miley White, Jaden Lambert, Cammie, and Noel Chafin, their counselors joining them as well. So if the House would please make them feel welcome.
Any further?
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 46th, Delegate Honaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today it's my privilege to introduce to you the Doctor of the Day, which I had the honor of introducing her a week ago, but let me remind you, Dr. Bridget Morrison, I asked her to stand, is with us today. She is the medical officer for Greenbrier and Monroe counties, also serves our veterans at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Beckley, and also serves at the Greenbrier Valley Medical Center. She's here today to take good care of you, so don't hesitate to go see her. Would you welcome Dr. Bridget Morrison, please?
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 66th, Delegate Nestor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Present with us in the South Gallery on behalf of myself and Delegate Mike Honaker, I would like to introduce our youth from the High Rocks Education Corporation. When I call your name, please stand for recognition. We have Kimberly Butler, Serena, Irie, Lane, Miles Fitzgerald, Haley Fitzgerald, Triana, Lauren Vanscoy, Caitlin Alderson, Amber McClure, Catherine Javis, Skylar McAllister, Jasmine Hobson, and Program Director and Supervisor Devin Preston. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 35th, Delegate Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a couple of introductions today. First, I want to start off with three of our pages that are here with us today from Wyoming East High School. Miss Piper Cook, Miss Andrea Laxton, and Miss Chloe Pritchard. If everybody would make them feel welcome. And then in the West Gallery, we have their chaperone, Mr. Anthony Dunn. He's a teacher at Wyoming East. We also have with us our county clerk, Ms. Joy Aguilar, and one of our magistrates, Mr. Craig Cook. So if everybody would please make them feel welcome as well.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 42nd, Delegate Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the West Gallery, we have students with Youth in Government from Raleigh County, and on behalf of the entire Raleigh County delegation, I'd like to welcome, if you'd stand say your name, from Independence Middle School, Lyric Burgess and Alyssa Woolwine. From Trap Hill Middle School, Rayleigh Goodwin and Shauna Spurlock. From Beckley Stratton, Vance Lindley and Matthew Price. From Shady Spring Middle School, Maggie Ritchie. And from my alma mater, Park Middle School, we welcome Trey Sides and Leah White, and they are all accompanied by Johan Smith and Carmelita Smith, if the House will make them feel welcome.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 61st, Delegate Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery with us today, we have Dr. Michael Pennington from West Virginia State University. Dr. Pennington is the MPA Director at West Virginia State. If Dr. Pennington would stand, would the House please make him feel welcome?
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Pritt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two sets of introductions today. In the gallery, we have some students with Youth in Government. They're my constituents from Oak Hill Middle School. And when I say your name, please stand. Mr. Noah Floyd, Miss Jenna Maynor, Miss Ava Queen, Mr. Jacob Schwartz, and they're escorted by Miss Michelle Craddock and Mr. Ty Branovich. Please make them feel welcome. Thank you. Thank you. And in this gallery here, I have four of my own students from Fayetteville Middle School, 8th graders. When I call your name, please stand. Mr. Fletcher Good, Miss Hallie Allen, Miss Mia Calloway, Mr. Alex Proskin, and Miss Tamara Banks, our school counselor. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 28th, Delegate Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm privileged today to have with me a couple of pages from Wayne Middle School. If they would please stand as I call their name. Miss Kinley Thompson and Miss J.C. Mills. Also in the South Gallery, I have a former student of mine, J.C.'s mother, Jennifer Merritt. If she would stand, would everyone please make her feel welcome.
Lady of 19th, Doug Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a page joining us today, but I don't see him on the floor. It's Mr. Brody Ranson. Oh, no, there he is. He was hiding from us. He is from Polka Middle School. He is joined by his mom, Amy, which I do not believe she is over here. She's accepting a citation over in the Senate today for Alzheimer's Day. They live in Liberty. And Brody informed me this morning that he really likes it here and is excited, and he wants to go into politics and take my job. But if we can all make Brody welcome, I'd appreciate it.
Gentleman in the 52nd, Doug Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is West Virginia State Day. And of course, as we talked several times in Black History Month, thanks to Carter G. Woodson, who was a dean at West Virginia State, we have that remarkable event every year. I would like to introduce, Mr. Speaker, Carrie Davis, who I believe is in this gallery, and also anybody from or for West Virginia State. Could you stand and let us all give you a round of applause? There. Thank you. Thank you.
Gentleman in 34th, Doug Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce two of my favorite constituents are with us today in the South Gallery. If you would please make them feel welcome, are our parents, Daniel and Debbie Dean.
Lady from the 36th, Doggett Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my honor today to announce 3 pages from McDowell County Mount View Middle School. We have Lily Hazard, Haley Green, and McKinley Kelly, and they are accompanied by Haley's mother, Tammy Farrell, and sister Haven Green, who, if they will also stand, and if everyone will please make them feel welcome.
Are there other introductions? Standing committee reports.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Joint Resolution 17, providing for the election of members of the State Board of Education, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it be adopted as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Report will be received. The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 3046, Fast Track for Agriculture Education Endorsement, and reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 3547, increasing the number of personal leave days that County Board of Education employees may use, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, and with recommendation that second reference to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with.
That report will be received. Gentleman the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Mr. Speaker, the 2 chairs have conferred on this matter, and I now ask unanimous consent that the second reference of the bill to the Committee on Finance be dispensed with.
Gentleman the 8th asks unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on Finance for House Bill 3547 be dispensed with. Are there objections? Okay, no objections are heard. That second reference to the Committee on Finance will be dispensed with. Next standing committee report.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2619, amending Hope Scholarship eligibility, and House Bill 3371, relating to federal funds for land-grant institutions, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass, but that they first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. Those bills will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 3223 to create a special education instructor entitlement, and House Bill 3546 providing for contracted employment of substitute teachers for 180 instructional days, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that they each do pass as amended, but that they first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Okay, the report will be received. Both bills will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 3353, relating to the limitations on the financial relationships with foreign entities that have values antithetical to those of the state of West Virginia, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Report will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 3092, relating to in-state food service permit reciprocity, and reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 2955, relating to the establishment and operation of regional water, wastewater, and stormwater authorities, and committee substitute for House Bill 3278, relating to the practice of optometry, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass.
That report will be received. Next committee report.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Bill 2607, clarify that vehicles with a capacity larger than 10 passengers may be used to transport students, provided that no more than 10 passengers may be transported at one time. House Bill 3376, relating to changing the term teacher in residence to clinical teacher of record. House Bill 3408, to clean up statutory provisions regarding the Hope Scholarship Program to better reflect the intent and operation of the program. House Bill 3441, revising the training requirements for members of the Higher Education Policy Commission, Council for Community and Technical College Education, and the institutional governing boards. House Bill 3548, relating to teacher duty-free lunch and daily planning periods, and House Bill 3549, relating to classroom teachers and special education classroom teachers, individualized education program requirements, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass.
That report will be received. Next report.
Your Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse has had under consideration House Bill 3114, deny severance pay to employees of DOT for failure or refusal of drug testing, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
That report will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse has had under consideration House Bill 2035, providing tax credits for hiring those in recovery for substance abuse, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Political Subdivisions has had under consideration House Bill 2939, relating to filing of lien by municipalities for collection of refuse fees. House Bill 3206, to establish a system to remediate fiscal emergencies of local governments and to modernize the process for dissolution of municipal corporations in this state. House Bill 3230 allowed the mayors of Class 3 and 4 towns to also serve as the chief of police, and House Bill 3435 to revise the process for political subdivisions to combine, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass, but that they first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Report will be received. Those bills will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Your Committee on Political Subdivisions has had under consideration House Bill 3075 to clarify that municipal B&O taxes shall only apply to the owner of a contract and not to subcontractors on a project, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 15, requesting that the Joint Committee on Government and Finance send official correspondence to West Virginia's federal delegations stating West Virginia veterans' concerns and objections to the two TRICARE for Life proposals, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Rules.
The report will be received, and the resolution will be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 2860 to dispose of old AFFF foam accumulated by fire departments, and House Bill 3026 to allow volunteer firefighters to participate on fire scenes with department training captain approval prior to completing Fireman 1 and 2, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass, but that they first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received, and both bills will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 2760 to allow CPR firefighters to drive ambulances when both attendants are needed to administer patient care, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
The report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services has had under consideration House Bill 3153, relating to distribution of certain taxes and surcharges to benefit volunteer and part volunteer fire departments and emergency medical service providers, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
All right, that report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Economic Development and Tourism has had under consideration House Bill 3370, creating loan program for certain properties and developments on U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, land, state parks, and resorts, and reports the same back with amendment with recommendation that it do pass as amended, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
That report will be received, and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 3166 to permit a hospital to hold a patient experiencing a psychiatric emergency for up to 72 hours, and committee substitute for Senate Bill 10, Campus Self-Defense Act, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2900 relating to the Deputy Sheriff Retirement System, and reports back to committee substitute therefore House Bill 2917 relating to allowing retired state employees who meet the minimum qualifications necessary to render post-retirement employment with the Department of Health and Human Resources, and reports back to committee substitute therefore. House Bill 3005 relating to accelerating the conversion of the state excise tax on the privilege of transferring real property into a county excise tax, and reports back to committee substitute therefore. Committee substitute for House Bill 3110 relating to funding the Office of Oil and Gas in the Department of Environmental Protection, and reports back a revised committee substitute therefore.
You don't want that?
House Bill 3148 relating to financing municipal policemen's and firemen's pension and relief funds, and reports back to committee substitute therefore. And House Bill 3233 relating generally to uniform and equipment allowances for the National Guard, and reports back at committee substitute therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2283 relating to authorized expenditures of revenue from certain state funds for fire departments, House Bill 2937 to reduce the business license fee for West Virginia volunteer fire departments to $250, and House Bill 3340 to revise the West Virginia Tax Increment Financing Act, and reports the same back with recommendation that they each do pass.
Okay, that report will be received.
Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security has had under consideration House Bill 3315 relating generally to readiness enhancement and commission bonuses, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance.
That report will be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance. Reports of select committees. Executive messages.
A communication from His Excellency the Governor advises that on February 15th, 2023, he approved committee substitute for House Bill 2530 and House Bill 2533.
Okay, that message will be received. Senate messages.
The Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed without amendment committee substitute for House Bill 4212, declaring November 14 every year a special Memorial Day in remembrance of the Marshall University airplane crash.
Message be received.
Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed without amendment House Bill 2882, making a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Economic Development.
The message be received.
The Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 467, providing county commissioners ongoing mechanism to consider compensation increases for elected officials every 2 years.
The message be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Are there other Senate messages? Okay, if not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 38.
Gentleman on the 8th, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further readings of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as indicated on the chamber automation system.
Gentleman on the 8th, ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? Okay, there are no objections. Petitions. Bills introduced. Motions. Gentleman on the 8th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to return to committee reports.
Gentleman on the 8th, ask unanimous consent to return to reports of standing committees. Are there objections? Okay, there are no objections heard.
I ask unanimous consent to further consideration of House Bill 3353.
The gentleman asks unanimous consent to return to further consideration of House Bill 3353. Are there objections? All right, there are no objections. Gentleman may proceed.
The two chairs having conferred, just a second, Mr. Speaker. The two chairs having conferred on this matter and now ask unanimous consent that the second reference of this bill be to the Committee on Judiciary be dispensed with.
Okay, the gentleman from the 8th asks unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on the Judiciary for House Bill 3353 be dispensed with. Are there objections to the gentleman's request? The gentleman's raised a point of order. The gentleman will state the point.
For which bill again? 3153 says to finance.
It's House Bill 3353. House Bill 3353. For the benefit of all members, the clerk has projected the short title here. House Bill 3353. Okay, again, the gentleman from the 8th asked unanimous consent that the second reference to the Committee on the Judiciary to this bill be dispensed with. Are there objections? Okay, there are no objections heard. That second reference to the Committee on the Judiciary will be dispensed with. Clerk will please place the bill on the counter. Bill's on third reading.
Senate Bill 275, adding state fire marshals to statute included with law enforcement and first responders that receive information on school safety requirements.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from 38th, Douglas Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill does exactly what was just stated. It adds state fire marshals to the list of persons who receive school safety information. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There were 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 275, adding state fire marshals to statute included with law enforcement and first responders that receive information on school safety requirements.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House or the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2062, establish rules and regulations for e-bikes in West Virginia that more closely comport to federal law.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 55th, Doug Capito, will explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute amends the West Virginia Code to provide for definitions, rules, and regulations that more closely comport with federal law and clarify permissive uses of 3 classes of electric bicycles. It amends the code to allow for Class 1 and Class 2 bicycles to be used on roads and trails where traditional non-motorized bikes are allowed to be used. Class 3 electric bicycles will continue to only be allowed for use on bicycle paths, multi-use trail, or single-use trails unless it is within a highway or roadway, provided that a municipality or local authority or governing body of a state agency has the ability to allow use on bicycle paths, multi-use trails, or single-use trails. It amends also to add Class 2 electric bikes to the requirement that these bikes shall not be operated by a rider that is under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman 38th, Doug Ellington.
Mr. Speaker, I was just having a point of order on the previous bill. We had a title amendment that wasn't reported.
Is there a title amendment in the system? While the clerk checks that, we'll reserve that point of order for further consideration until after completion of House Bill 2062. Again, the question is, shall committee substitute for House Bill 2062 pass? Is there debate on the bill? Lady in the 49th, Doug Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill today. I want to talk about the genesis of it. A constituent approached me last session, actually, about this bill. This gentleman is a young man who is very entrepreneurial. He actually was a teacher and decided to open an e-bike business. We were talking about some of the federal regulations in the national parks, actually, that had been expanded in recent years. And so we thought it would be nice actually to promote tourism in West Virginia and develop some consistency in our national and our state parks to allow riders to have additional recreational opportunities with e-bikes. This bill actually helps promote tourism. It actually encourages use of our state parks when tourists come actually to the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. It actually helps keep young entrepreneurs in our state and wanting to work in small businesses. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge passage.
The question before the House again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 87 ayes, 9 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2062, establish rules and regulations for e-bikes in West Virginia that more closely comport to federal law.
Are the title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, the gentleman from the 38th, Douglas Ellington, raised a point of order about the availability of a title amendment on Senate Bill 275. That point of order is well taken. There is a title amendment in the system for the bill. That amendment may or may not be visible to all members. So at this time, the chair will ask the clerk to read the title amendment to Senate Bill 275. Yep, go ahead.
Senate Bill 275, adding state fire marshals to statute included with law enforcement and first responders that receive information on school safety requirements. Delegate Ellington moves to amend the title by striking out the title and substituting therefore a new title to read as follows. A bill to amend and reenact 18-9F10 of the Code of West Virginia 1931 as amended, relating to adding state fire marshals to the list of persons who receive information related to school safety requirements.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment just read by the clerk. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Let's move on to consideration now of the next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2515, require agencies to develop and maintain an inventory of available services for single parents wanting to obtain degrees, secure training, or re-enter the workforce.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 68th, Douglas Phillips, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute for House Bill 2515 requires the Higher Education Policy Commission, Workforce West Virginia, and the Bureau for Family Assistance to jointly create and maintain an inventory of educational and occupational resources to individuals qualified to receive federal or state assistance. The committee substitute also requires the inventory to be distributed upon request. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2515, require agencies to develop and maintain an inventory of available services for single parents wanting to obtain degrees, secure training, or re-enter the workforce.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2587 to reflect that county sheriffs will be required to include a breakdown of the distribution of where a citizen's taxes will be paid.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 51st, Douglas Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill relates to the accrual and collection of taxes, requiring the sheriff to provide a receipt for taxes collected, specifying payment information contained on the receipt, requiring the name of the sheriff and the officer receiving payment, including their initials on the receipt. This bill requires the sheriff to present a written or printed receipt, or if the taxes are paid online, a digital receipt for the payment of real property taxes that includes the amounts paid to each taxing entity, county, city, school board, public safety, levy, etc. The receipt must include the sheriff's name, the name of the officer who accepted the payment, plus the officer's initials. Current law only requires a receipt when the total amount of taxes are paid. That's a summary, Mr. Speaker, and I would urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2587 to reflect that county sheriffs will be required to include a breakdown of the distribution of where a citizen's taxes will be paid.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next, bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2638 authorizing certain agencies of the Department of Administration to promulgate legislative rules.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 51st, Douglas Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is a rules bundle for the Department of Administration. It contains 2 rules. Those are 148 CSR 1 involving purchasing and 148 CSR 6 involving parking. As to the former, the rule encompasses and is in response to House Bill 4499, which was passed in the last regular session involving purchasing. Regarding the parking rule, primarily it allows the public entity to pay capital city parking for its employees, the $20 parking fee. That is a summary, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage.
Question, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 94th, Douglas Kump.
Permission to speak on the bill?
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
I have 2 issues on this, the general and the specific. In general, when I first came to the legislature in the 2010 election, I was surprised that with the administrative rules that agencies promulgate as a result of legislative action, that it went from review to the legislature, which I thought was a tremendous advantage for West Virginia. These rules consideration by the legislature certainly are tedious to the point of being mind-numbing from time. But I think that's a much better procedure than what's done in other states, that it's just referred to the Attorney General. Attorney General gives it to the staff, and it falls into an endless hole. On this bill particularly, I'm excited because when I was first elected in 2010, I knew that West Virginia state employees were underpaid and underappreciated. When I came to the legislature, I was so grateful and remain grateful for the service that the legislative employees do, the hours they put in and the quality of work that they do. They also are underpaid and unappreciated. But I found out not long afterwards that not only are they underpaid and underappreciated, they are forced to pay a $20 fee for parking in regard to their work. Even when they couldn't come to work because of COVID, they still had to pay the $20 fee. So I'm excited about the delegate from the 20th District who took action to see that this correction is made, and I heartily endorse a yea vote.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? All right, if not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2638, authorizing certain agencies of the Department of Administration to promulgate legislative rules.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 8th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from passage.
The gentleman from the 8th moves that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of that motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent, 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2640, authorizing certain agencies of the Department of Environmental Protection to promulgate legislative rules.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill was advanced to third reading yesterday with the right to amend. The clerk will please report the First Amendment.
Delegates Howe and Rowley move to amend the bill on page 3, subsection G, line 41, by striking the period and inserting in lieu thereof the following, with the following amendment. On page 2, after subdivision 41B, by inserting a new subdivision 41C to read as follows. 41C, this project shall give priority to structures near highly visible traffic areas, tourism corridors, and/or common open space.
Gentleman from the 87th, I'll get Howe to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We worked this amendment out with DEP on the dilapidated properties that we would give priority to the, as it says, the high visibility areas in the tourism to help with economic development and tourism growth. I urge adoption.
The question is on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there a debate on the amendment? All right, if not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. Okay, the ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? Okay, if not, clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2640, authorizing certain agencies of the Department of Environmental Protection to promulgate legislative rules.
Okay, the question now is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 55th, Delegate Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is our DEP rules bundle. There are 4 rules, 45 CSR 16, 45 CSR 30, 45 CSR 34, and 45 CSR 40 that deal with updates to the federal standards, which allows the state of West Virginia to maintain primacy. 38 CSR 3 certifies, it's certifying blasters on site for quarry and reclamation. The Recycling Assistance Grant Program is exactly what it says. It deals with grants to recycling programs. The reclamation of abandoned and dilapidated properties we just heard about with the amendment from the gentleman from the 87th. And that deals and provides monies to counties and cities for dealing with these properties. And the final rule deals with the reclamation of solar and wind energy or electricity generating facilities. And this addresses issues related to a bill that we had passed in a previous session that deals with the bonding associated with reclamation. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the rules bundle. I'd urge passage.
The gentleman from the 98th, Delegate Espinosa, is recognized.
Will the chairman yield?
Yes.
Does this rules bundle, does this in any way impact regulation of manufacturing facilities?
It would, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for a ruling under Rule 49. My employer is a manufacturing facility that might be regulated by this rules bundle.
Yes, gentleman is correct. Under the state of facts as relayed to the chair by the gentleman from the 98th, Delegate Espinosa, the gentleman's employer may potentially be impacted by the bill, but not the gentleman directly. And furthermore, the gentleman would be a part of a class of 5 or greater individuals, and therefore would be directed by the chair to vote on this question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the question? Okay, if not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 92 ayes, 3 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2640, authorizing certain agencies of the Department of Environmental Protection to promulgate legislative rules.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from passage.
The gentleman from the 8th, Douglas Kelly, moves that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of that motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 93 ayes, 3 nays, and 4 members absent, 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. For what purpose does the gentleman second, Douglas Zateslow, seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to go to the second order of business for purposes of an introduction.
All right, are there objections to returning to introductions? All right, no objections are heard. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's really my pleasure and honor to recognize the presence of our former delegate and first chairman of the Energy Committee, Mr. Woody Ireland.
Are there other introductions while we're on the second order of business? All right, if not, next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2820 to provide Hope Scholarship recipients with the ability to play sports.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from 38th, Doug Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill extends eligibility for participation in interscholastic athletic events and other extracurricular activities in secondary schools to students who participate in the Hope Scholarship Program or in a micro-school or learning pod and who have demonstrated satisfactory evidence of academic progress, enrolled in at least one virtual instructional course per semester, has not reached the age of 19 by August 1st of the current school year, is an amateur who receives no compensation, agrees to comply with all disciplinary rules of the West Virginia Secondary School Athletic Commission and the county board in which the student lives, and agrees to obey by all rules of the West Virginia Secondary School Athletic Commission governing awards, all-star games, parental consents, physical examinations, and vaccinations that are applicable to all high school athletes. Eligibility is limited to participation in interscholastic athletic events and other extracurricular activities at the public secondary school serving the attendance zone in which the student lives. Students who leave a member school are subject to the same transfer protocols as member-to-member transfers. Reasonable fees may be charged for participation. Students that are enrolled in a private school shall not be eligible to play on a public school team if the sport is offered at the private school. And private school students are also subject to the same member-to-member transfer protocols and West Virginia Secondary School Athletics Commission waiver application process. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill, and I urge passage.
Question before the House: shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 25th, Douglas Hornbuckle, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair please yield?
Yes, gentleman does yield.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To your last assertion about a public school kid may not transfer unless that program is not offered at their school, where in
a private school Hope Scholarship participant cannot play in the public school in that district if that sport is already offered at the private school.
If that sport is already offered at that school?
Yes, if the sport is not offered at school, then they can participate in the public school.
And I know I had an amendment that was speaking to that. Where in the text of the legislation is that?
That is in the committee substitute, which was amended. That's where the amendment was in, from the committee.
And the same holds true with a private school student transferring to a private school as well?
If they transfer, then they have to follow the same rules as far as sitting out for a year, but they could, if they transfer from one private school to another one, they'd have to do the same thing.
And so if they don't transfer, if they just want to go play a sport at another private school, is that same language?
I don't think that's, this doesn't affect that, I don't think.
Okay.
This doesn't apply to that.
Permission to speak to the bill?
Yes, gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is premature. Coming out of committee, I actually voted for it. Voted for it in the hopes that this process wouldn't go as fast and we'll be able to clean up some things that I think is going to land us in a little bit of a legal trouble. The first reason I think that this bill is prematured and needs vetted a little bit more to pass it is, number one, through testimony we found out through the WVSSAC director, Bernie Dolan, that this will cause an unnecessary hardship in determining eligibility for players across our state. More importantly, if a child is in private school and they are not a Hope Scholarship participant, the same rules do not apply. And so now brings into the question of constitutionality, creating unequal treatment. Because if you have two students that are in a private school, one would be eligible to do this under this legislation, but the student sitting right next to him would not be able to. And so I would urge the body to not vote for this legislation. Again, I voted for it coming out of committee with the hopes we could fix it, but it has serious questions about constitutionality. And so I would urge the body to reject this. Thank you.
Gentleman, the 35th, Doug Advance, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chair of Education yield for some questions?
Yes, sir.
I'm not really familiar with the homeschool grading system and all that. I know how it is in public schools. You have to maintain a 2.0 with the SSAC.
That is correct.
So is that the same grading scale with homeschool?
No, it is
eligibility?
not. They have to be above the fourth stand-on, which is probably right around where a 2.0 would be.
So you could have, my question is you can have a kid that is working his tail off in public school to maintain a 2.0, and a kid from homeschool can come and take his place on the team,
well,
or whatever, without having the same eligibility requirements.
That's already in code.
Okay.
This doesn't change that. It just adds the schools and the learning pods that could be added to that.
No. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Speaker.
The question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 50th, Doug Pritz, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chair of Education yield real quickly? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the way that it's written, reasonable fees may be charged to the student, correct? So they're not required, if they go back to the public school to play sports, they're not required to pay a fee to cover materials or transport or anything like that.
They're not required to, but if there is a fee that's applicable already to what we have with the homeschool students participating, then that would be the same fee that would be applied to those individuals.
Okay, thank you very much. Speak to the bill.
Gentleman's recognized.
I rise opposition to this bill. It's just another bill that siphons funds away from public schools. It's just another chisel away at the edifice of public education. I hope that you all will join me in pushing the red button. Thank you all for your time.
Gentleman, the 90th, Doug Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
What, maybe I misunderstood it, but what fees would the county be charging for?
If there was extra, let's say they were going to play football and they needed a helmet or things like that, or some other things that would be additional.
The students don't pay for that now, do they?
Not currently in the current public school. It would be if someone wants to participate and they ask that they need to pay. Most of the time they would probably just say, no, you don't need anything.
Could the county waive that?
They could. That's up to them.
Okay. One more question. With the new ruling from the CA or ACCA, will they be able to go to a different school to play? because of their ability?
They have to the Hope Scholarship students would have to participate in their attendance zone.
In their own...
Where they live, yeah, where they live.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And if I may expand on, you asked about the fee part. The public school system retains about 2/3 of the of the student aid that they get for the county for that student that has a Hope Scholarship. Remember, the Hope Scholarship only gives that state portion, so the school retains that. So that's where a county may say, we're already receiving approximately $7,000 for that student. That would go to our fees.
Okay, thank you. May I speak to the bill?
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, officiating and knowing what goes on in things, I think this is a good bill, and I just urge everyone to go ahead and vote for it. Thank you.
Gentleman the 14th, Douglas Foggin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You'll hear people speak against this bill based on the parents might be cheating, trying to get an athlete at a certain school to do a certain thing for that school. And people do cheat, coaches cheat, parents cheat, kids go to school where they want to pretty much anyway already. This is allowing a kid, just like a homeschooled kid, to go and play sports where they live, on the team where they would play already. And so really the only person that would be getting cheated would be the student that you don't allow to play a sport. And you'll hear people say, well, the money, it's going to cost money, and that kid's taking their money. But really, like you just heard the chairman say, there's, half of their money stays with the county already. So you're hiring a football coach. You don't have to hire a new football coach for the Hope Scholarship kid. You're hiring a wrestling coach. You don't have to hire a new one for the Hope Scholarship kid. You already have a football field. Yeah, you might need new headgear for the wrestler, or you might need a helmet, but you're going to supply those anyway. So the only person getting cheated with a no vote on this is the student athlete that we want to encourage to be involved anyway. So thank you.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman the 60th, Douglas Farrell is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this bill, I don't think it's any secret to anybody that's come through Education Committee that I had some concerns about it. And as has already been mentioned here, part of those, I spent 30 years of my life in public schools teaching and coaching. And as I pointed out in the committee, during that time during coaching, I had to make cuts, had to cut kids. Had to make decisions on who was going to start, who was going to sit on the bench. And that's never easy. In fact, it's stuff that sometimes I've cut kids I wish I'd have kept. I've kept kids I probably wish I'd have cut. But it's a really tough thing as a coach. And the bill, even though it has good intentions, I have no problem. In fact, we already have homeschool kids that are coming back. I know at my homeschool in my district that we have one of the starting point guards on the basketball team is a homeschool kid. He comes in and I think they're required to take a class or two, either virtual or in person there at school, and that's all worked out well. And so I think this, is a chance to try to expand on that. But the problem is here, as mentioned, yes, $7,000 of federal money stays with the school, the students leaving, but $4,600 or so, whatever the amount is, $4,700, that's not an insignificant amount of money that goes out. The parents decide, hey, this school doesn't work for me, doesn't work for my kids. I'm going to take that money and take it over here and put it into private education, Christian school, wherever it be. And that's great. I think there again, we voted on that and we've approved that. But now that that's done, oh, wait a minute, we want to go back to the public school and take advantage of their amenities and the extracurricular activities that they're offering, and basically say, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. And in the process, one of those students that have stayed at that school, kept their money in there, as a gentleman here from McDowell, is that right? McDowell County? Wyoming, I'm sorry, Wyoming County mentioned, the kids are busting their butt there, working through the system in the school, and subsequently somebody gets cut. Somebody has to sit the bench now because another student come in and took the place on that team. And how much of that's going to happen? It may be limited, but it's going to happen. And there is going to be collateral damage with this bill. I think it's something that we could rewrite. I like Delegate Tolley's amendment to that, that states that if the sport is offered at the private school, they do have to sit out the year. If they transfer to the public, that does make it better. But inevitably, there is going to be collateral damage here. Can't keep from it. Some kid that's working hard and wants to play on the team is going to get cut and not make the team now because somebody else came in from outside and took their spot. So with that regard, I will urge a no vote on the bill. Thank you.
Lady from the 19th, Kraus is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support of this bill. This is my bill. All it is doing is allowing kids to play. Currently, it's already in law that homeschoolers can play under Exemption C. It is kids under Exemption M and N, which is Hope Scholarship, micro schools, and learning pods, cannot currently play because they are not included in the current law. This is adding them in. Let's see, public schools continue to get funding. They get all county funding and federal funding. So any school levies, excess levies still go to the school system, which us homeschool parents and Hope Scholarship parents, private school parents still pay. So they are not losing any of that money. In West Virginia, it was noted in Education Committee that in the high school level, about 40,000 students play sports. Out of those 40,000 students that play sports, with the current homeschoolers being allowed to play, only about 164 homeschoolers are currently playing sports. We're not taking over. They're not taking over. Adding in Exemption M and N to allow these students to play only brings that may just double that number, which is still not that many. So I encourage everybody to pass this bill and press green and do it for the kids.
So on the 13th, Delegate Heckert's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of ifs, ands, ors, and buts in this bill. Could, would, and should. The bottom line is, if the kids get to play sports, and they're playing sports and they're not out doing something to get themselves in trouble or living in front of a video game, it'll help the kids to make their life better, to give them participation. I urge passage of this bill. Thank you very much.
Gentleman, the 65th, Delegate Martin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Chairman of Education yield for a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, do schools get any kind of school aid formula money from children that go to a micro school or
yes, the school,
learning pod?
yeah, the county gets money for each school that is in the county. I mean, for each child in the county. Federal money, they get their local levy, and they get also excess levy money.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate on this bill? Okay, if not, gentleman number 38, Delegate Ellington, to close debate on the bill. Okay, if not, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there are 72 ayes, 23 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. Clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2820 to provide Hope Scholarship recipients with the ability to play sports.
Are there title amendments? Are there title amendments? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3012 to encourage economic development regarding rare earth elements and critical minerals as defined by providing temporary severance tax relief.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman 97, Delegate Hardy, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to encourage economic development of rare earth elements and critical minerals by providing a temporary severance tax relief. This bill exempts all severance taxation for 9 years beginning July 1, 2023 for serving rare earth elements and critical minerals. These minerals are defined in the bill. I urge passage, Mr. Speaker.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman 13, Douglas Heckert.
Yes, sir. For some reason, my vote didn't register on 2820, and I was a yes.
The clerk will please record the gentleman's vote. The gentleman was present and in his seat.
Yes.
Okay, clerk will please record the gentleman from the 13th, Douglas Heckert, as having voted in the affirmative.
Thank you, sir.
Our question now again is on committee substitute for House Bill 3012. Gentleman from the 35th, Douglas Vance, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I asked to speak to the bill.
Yes, gentleman's recognized.
We had it in committee in energy, and I was in there, and I had offered an amendment for 5 years. And the reason I offered the 5 years was because we have a company coming to Wyoming County already that's supposed to set up in 2023 this year. Given the fact they say they have the technology and all that, we already have massive amounts of coal waste there in our slate dumps and all that for them to get. It does not have to be mined, it's already been mined. That's why I was asking for the 5 years, because if the company comes to our county and sets up in 2 years, and at the time in energy it left out with 12 years, and I guess finance amended it to 9, but if it sets up in 2 years, then that gives them at that time 10 years, but now I'll say 7 because the bill is down to 9. But gives them 7 years of doing this stuff in our county, and my county not getting anything from it as far as the severance tax dollars. We will get the jobs. I'm not saying this about the jobs. I don't think if we voted this down it would take the jobs. There's 100 jobs in it is what they say that's going to come to our county with that, and I'm all for it. I'm all for the process of it. I'm all for seeking these out and getting the technology and all that. I don't want nobody thinking I'm against that, but what I am against is for a company to come set up in my county for 9 years and not contribute to the state of West Virginia in tax dollars. So for me, I'm no on this bill. Thank you.
Question is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 50th, Douglas Pritz, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very excited for the opportunities this bill is going to present. Permission to speak the bill.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited for the opportunities this is going to present to coal-producing counties. I, like my colleague from Wyoming, do have concerns about the number of years that there's going to be tax exemption, but my hope in the end is that there will be enough jobs created and economic development that it will be a net benefit. And this also presents a great opportunity to clean up a lot of waste sites that have been sitting around in our communities for a long time. And so I'm going to vote yes, but I just wanted to register my slight concerns with the time for tax exemption. I appreciate your all's time. Thank you.
Is there further debate on the bill? If not, Gentleman 97th, close debate on the bill. Okay, question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 91 ayes, 7 nays, 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3012 to encourage economic development regarding rare earth elements and critical minerals as defined by providing temporary severance tax relief.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3168, ensuring investment in West Virginia tourism is competitive with other states and accessible long-term.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, Gentleman from the 12th, Chris, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon. This bill would amend and modernize the Tourism Development Act, providing a mechanism by which a project may amend the date by which it is to be completed, extending the applicable tax credit items from 10 years to 15 years, authorizing an additional 10-year term for companies to continue taking authorization and outstanding tax credits, and making other technical corrections. I urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 95 ayes, 3 nays, 2 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3168, ensuring investment in West Virginia tourism is competitive with other states and accessible long-term.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3190, amending the definition of minor.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 55th, Doug Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute amends the West Virginia Code to provide for expanding and clarifying the definition of a minor, as well as creating new crimes for solicitation of a minor or a person purported to be a minor by any means not involving the use of a computer, and also traveling to engage the minor or purported minor in specific illegal activity. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. From the 91st. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3190, amending the definition of minor.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Capito moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3192, abolishing the Center for Nursing and transferring its duties and authorities to the Higher Education Policy Commission.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 12th, Doug Chris, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill would repeal current law that establishes the West Virginia Center for Nursing and moving its function under the administration of the Higher Education Policy Commission, establishing there within a new Office of Nursing Education and Workforce Development. The bill would also repeal the current law requiring a special $10 annual license fee from the licensed practical nurses that was dedicated to funding the repeal center. This section would also continue the HEPC's Administration of Nursing Scholarship Program that provides scholarship awards for students enrolled in accrediting nursing programs in West Virginia who agree to fulfill a service requirement or repay the amount of the award back. I urge passage.
Question before the House, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Lady in the 49th, Doug Tully is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of this bill, and I would like to explain to you why. Way back in 2001, there was a nursing shortage study commission that was brought forth by the legislature to study the nursing shortage. Recommendations came out of that for the development of, for the West Virginia Center for Nursing, and $10 assessment was put on our licensure fees for our renewals to fund this center. The primary function of the center was to collect data as far as supply and demand data for nurses, RNs, LPNs, to see where these shortages were going to be and what type of development programs needed to be implemented. Unfortunately, the Center for Nursing fell very short on what was sold to us as nurses at that time, because we kind of thought, well, maybe if they study the shortage, we're going to see things improve. I think we've only seen things worsen, actually, as of, especially throughout the pandemic, but even before that. The Center for Nursing actually went through a PERD review. I believe that was 2009. they had about a 24% response rate on their employer surveys. The auditor at that time encouraged them to seek legislative intervention to get employers to compel data forward as far as the vacancies. And rather than do that, in about 2013, 2014, the legislation was drafted to remove the data collection element altogether. And it also put the Center for Nursing under the HEPC at that time and changed it into a scholarship program. This bill was sold as something to alleviate shortages that bedside nurses, it's very important for bedside nurses to have a full staff. It wasn't sold to us as a scholarship program or to fund PhD programs. What you have is LPNs that are funding PhDs that are teaching in universities, and I think that that is innately wrong. You have nurses that are providing direct patient care in nursing homes, hospitals, funding those programs, and for that reason, I would urge that we vote in support of this bill to repeal the Center for Nursing and find funding elsewhere for it, not on the backs of nurses in the state. The other part of that is no other health profession assesses a fee on a licensure that I'm aware of in the state to fund scholarship programs. Physicians, PT, OT, none of the other individuals that are participating in professional programs. So for that reason, I would urge support of the bill. Thank you.
Again, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there further debate on the bill? Okay, if not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 92 ayes, 3 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3192, abolishing the Center for Nursing and transferring its duties and authorities to the Higher Education Policy Commission.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please, gentleman from the 8th, Kelly.
You, Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective July 1st, 2023.
Gentleman from the 8th moves that the bill take effect July 1st, 2023. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 92 ayes, 3 nays, and 5 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill effective July 1st, 2023. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3218, relating to requiring suicide prevention resources be printed on student identification cards.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from 38th, Doug Ellington, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires that all public schools serving grades 6 through 12 and public and private institutions of higher education that issue identification cards to print on both sides of the identification cards the information for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line. And the Suicide Prevention Lifeline can be reached by dialing 988. The Crisis Text Line can be reached by texting HOME, H-O-M-E, to 741-741. Mr. Speaker, that is essentially the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3218, relating to requiring suicide prevention resources be printed on student identification cards.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3286, relating to an additional modification decreasing federal taxable income.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 12th, Doug Chris, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill would modify the changes to the apportionment of business income earned in more than one state that is taxable under the personal income tax law in West Virginia, made in House Bill 2026 back in the 21st the year or regular session of the year 2021 that shifted the West Virginia tax law from a three-factor apportioned formula to a single sales factor apportionment formula, and also shifted to a market-based sourcing of sales. The bill would allow an additional modification decreasing the federal income tax for the corporation, net income tax purposes to publicly traded companies, including affiliates, corporations participating in the filing of the publicly traded companies' financial statements if the changes enacted in House Bill 2026 result in an aggregate increase to the taxpayer's deferred tax liability or aggregate decrease to the taxpayer's net deferred tax asset, or an aggregate change from a net deferred tax asset to a net deferred tax liability. If that occurs, then the type of taxpayer would be allowed this new decreasing modification. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3286, relating to an additional modification decreasing federal taxable income.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House and the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3293, relating generally to identifying and educating exceptional children exhibiting indicators or diagnosed with dyslexia or dyscalculia.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from 38th, Dr. Elgin will explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 3293 addresses current statute by enriching our approach on dyslexia and dyscalculia. This will require policy at the West Virginia Department of Education to align with current definitions and instructional approaches that have been proven successful with these learning disabilities. In addition, House Bill 3293 also requires the Department of Education to create a literacy and numeracy policy to come before LOCIA in how they plan to address dyslexia and dyscalculia, requiring them to utilize screeners for K-2, informing parents and staff on signs of these learning disabilities, and expanding professional development so that teachers may have a better understanding of how to individualize their instruction for these students. Additionally, requiring third graders who perform below grade level on their benchmark assessments to have an additional screener performed for possible learning disabilities. The literacy and numeracy policy shall also include 1, disaggregated data on statewide patterns concerning literacy and numeracy, statewide interventions being implemented, statewide professional development, and progress monitoring reports from K-2 screening and 3rd to 8th grade formative assessments presented 3 times a year once data is collected. Mr. Speaker, that is essentially the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 12th, Delegate Chris is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Catching this early is important. Teachers need the training to recognize dyslexia. The county's advisors will be able to train others and help the implementation of the rest of this bill. If you're not responding to intervention, the need for diagnosis will give them this unique tools that they need. We need an avenue to help students, just not in the 3rd grade, but beyond. We need to change the thinking for dyslexic. It's not a disability. It's a different ability of the mind that has potential to do amazing things. And the 2 people that come to mind of amazing things of dyslexia is Gaston Caperton as governor of the state of West Virginia and your current chairman of the Finance Committee. I urge passage.
Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there further debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 98 ayes, 0 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3293, relating generally to identifying and educating exceptional children exhibiting indicators or diagnosed with dyslexia or dyscalculia.
Are the title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3318, relating to location of services provided by the Workforce Development Board as related to the one-stop delivery system.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the first, Doug McGeehan, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 3318 is to ensure that the Workforce Development Board will develop statewide policies that ensure a resident receives services from their local area. And we've sort of gotten away with that, we've gotten away from that since the COVID era. So this bill establishes the requirement that the board develop policies that prioritize the one-stop delivery system become local, or more local, to include case management services, unemployment services, job services, and all other services encompassed within the WIO Act, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So the bill, though, does allow for some options in case of hold times or certain emergencies where their local regional office is overwhelmed. The language reflected in this committee substitute is a compromise version with the Workforce West Virginia folks. So that being said, I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 96 ayes, 1 nay, and 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3318, relating to location of services provided by the Workforce Development Board as related to the one-stop delivery system.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3328, authorizing the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority to contract to build and maintain trails on privately owned property.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman from the 87th, Doug Howell, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 3328 authorizes the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreational Authority to contract their trail building and trail maintenance capabilities for the construction of maintenance of both motorized and non-motorized trails on private property with the consent of the private property owner. The bill will help facilitate development of private property adjacent to or otherwise connectable to the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System for tourism purposes. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 96 ayes, 0 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3328, authorizing the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority to contract to build and maintain trails on privately owned property.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there further bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
House Bill 3215, relating to land use.
From the 8th.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that we postpone action one day.
Are there objections postponing action one day on House Bill 3215? Gentleman at 20, Douglas Foster, recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this bill's been postponed multiple days. My request is that it be advanced with amendments pending rather than postpone action one day.
Okay, the gentleman does object. Those in favor of postponing action by 1 day will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. Action be postponed by 1 day. Further bills on second reading. Bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 89 requiring hospitals to staff qualified personnel to perform sexual assault forensic exams.
Bill will be advanced to second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2150 requiring parents or guardians to participate in programs for juveniles in an out-of-home placement.
Bill will be advanced to second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2498 to require medication-assisted treatment programs to have written policies concerning community relations.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2848, water and sewer operator licensing reciprocity.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3101 relating to notification of breast density.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3147 to create the Upper Ohio Valley Trail Network.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3428 relating to the West Virginia Business Ready Sites Program.
That bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3430 to prohibit the Bureau from assessing a fee upon local health departments.
The bill will be advanced. Are there other bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Gentleman the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for our colleagues Bridges and Hannah.
Are there objections? Leaves of absence been granted. No objections are heard. Leaves of absence will be granted. Introductions. Introductions, miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, that the House adjourn until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Are there announcements? Gentleman from the 97th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today, February 16th at 4 p.m. or 30 minutes after the House Economic Development meeting. Adjournment in the Finance Committee room. The agenda is posted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 8th.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules will meet tomorrow morning in the chamber, behind the chamber at 8:45.
Gentleman from the 51st.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would inquire as to the availability of the chamber for a public hearing Monday, February 20 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
That was Monday?
Monday.
Chair is advised by the clerk, space is available.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will hold a public hearing for House Bill 3270, which is to amend the deliberate intent statute to limit non-economic damages to $250,000 on Monday, February 20 from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Those wishing to speak shall appear and register by 8:30 or starting at 8:30 Monday morning in the House chamber. In addition, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on the Judiciary will have a meeting in the Judiciary meeting room Friday, February 17th at 9 a.m. in the House Judiciary Committee room. That's tomorrow. The agenda will be posted. Scratch that last announcement. As we say, strike that. But the public hearing will take place.
Okay, gentleman to 43rd, Doug Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet this evening immediately following Technology and Infrastructures meeting in the House Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. Additionally, your Committee on Education will meet tomorrow, 30 minutes following the floor session in the House Education Committee room, and the agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 88th, Doug Hillenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Veterans Caucus will meet today at 4:30 in the House Judiciary Committee room.
Lady Miss 70th, Doug Petito.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Senior, Children, and Family Issues will meet 30 minutes after this floor session today in the House Judiciary Committee room. Please bring your computer, and the agenda has been posted.
From the 21st, Dr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet today at 2 p.m. in the House Education Committee room. The agenda has been posted. Republican members will caucus at 1:30 p.m. in the committee room.
From the 99th, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Economic Development and Tourism will meet today at 2 p.m. In the House Finance Committee room, and your Republican members will caucus at 1:45 in the committee room. Thank you.
From the 23rd, Dr. Worrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The West Virginia AFL-CIO Joint Labor Caucus will be held in House Gov.org today, immediately after floor session. Food will be provided for the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Someone from the 51st, Dr. Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'll try this again. Your Committee on Judiciary will meet Monday morning, February 17th at 10 a.m. immediately following the public hearing, and the Republicans will caucus immediately before. Let me rephrase that. The Republicans will caucus at 10 a.m. in the chairman's chamber, House office, and the meeting will commence at 10:15 a.m.
In the what?
In other words, the Republicans will caucus in the chairman's office at 10 a.m. Monday, and the meeting will commence at 10:15 Monday in the committee meeting room. The agenda will be posted.
Lady in the 49th, Dr. Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a brief reminder to our House Health Committee members. We will meet today at 3 p.m. in the East Wing Committee room, and we will caucus, the Republican members will caucus at 2:45 in the chairwoman's office. Thanks.
Are there other announcements? If not, the question is on the motion that the House adjourn until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We are adjourned until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.